Welcome to the T2 Hubcast. Join Martin, Dave, Spencer and guests as they discuss all things personal and professional development. The T2 Hubcast, brought to you by the People Performance People.
So welcome to another T2 Hubcast, and it's one that I've been looking forward to. For those of you on the Hub who have, it's your first Hubcast or you're a new member, my name's Martin Johnson, I'm the CEO of Trans2 Performance. I've got with me a special guest today who is Christina Colmer McHugh. Did I get that right?
You did.
We've just been laughing off air about trying to get that right. So Christina is the co-founder of Moodbeam, an innovative startup or tech startup here in Hull. I say startup, but it's been some time now. I guess how long have you been?
3 years.
3 years. 3 years in the making, but it's really exciting. There's a lot of momentum building, I think, certainly in the area, but generally in the UK about the product. The reason I've got Christina on today is because we have a section on the Hub called the Wellbeing section. And we record various hubcasts and videos and write content around what managers, if you like, can be doing in organisations to be able to think about well-being, to cater for their employees' needs, and certainly for those people who may be struggling from time to time with workload, with pressures, with stress, anxiety, whatever it might be. I know it's mental health is becoming more aware in the organisation. We're speaking about it more. It's getting more profile, and therefore we strongly believe, as you know, that we have a duty of care to try and do something about it and not just be aware of it. So I've got Christina in to talk today about well-being in the workplace and some of her thoughts. But before we do you just want to give a little bit more introduction to Moodbeam and your story and why you've obviously how you've got to where you have today?
Yeah, will do. Thank you, Martin, first of all, for the opportunity. It's great to be here. Yeah, Moodbeam really is, I guess, it's quite a bold statement, but factually right in that if I say it is the first wearable for the mind. I created Moodbeam out of the need as a mum to know how my daughter was feeling when she wasn't with me. She was having the usual struggles at school, but I sort of was left thinking, well, there must be something more that I can do to get a conversation going within the family environment initially, and provide her and empower her in a way to be able to log her emotions in real time, and then at a time more convenient to us, talk about what they look like and why she felt a certain way.
So Moodbeam was created then from a personal experience. I mean, there was no desire and strategizing for years about creating something. It just was sparked from a personal experience where you was thinking with your daughter, if I had something like
Tangible,
this
yeah.
that could connect me to my daughter when I'm not with her, just to track how she is doing, first and foremost, that would be of use. And that was your first...
Oh, it was a complete light bulb moment. You know, I was a working journalist for 20 plus
Wow.
years before that. Busy working mum, if you like, husband who worked away a lot. And it was really, school were very supportive at the time. The other family were, and we were as a family, but it left me realising that, I like to think of us as a family who talk about everything and are very open. But it was the fact that a 7-year-old child had tried to cope on her own initially with these feelings and try and decide for herself whether something was good or bad. That made me realise that I actually didn't give enough credit to a child growing up to know that around the age of 7, as I've discovered, they do become quite conscious and aware of feelings, and really what I wanted to do was help her cope and find a perspective on her day.
Yeah.
She's never going to change. She's that nature. She's the personality. And
well, let me ask you a question on that, because I've got 3 children, and my middle daughter is at times the most courageous and bold and feral and challenging, but she's the one who suffers with anxiety more than the other 2 children. Now, I'm a very extroverted, outgoing, confident person. My wife is a chronic worrier. So we try and sort of think, well, has my wife's worries and worrying and state of mind passed on to my middle daughter because she's observed that or whatever it might be, or are some children just more prone to worrying? I mean, what's your, when you look about you and your husband and your daughter, is there any triggers in it that you could sort of link to why she was feeling the way she was, or did it just...
I think being honest is a bit of both. I think, if you talk to, because, we always say we do not profess to diagnose, we're not clinicians, we're just people who have created a tool that almost enhances what clinicians do and timestamps. But in terms of taking it back to the family environment, I think it is a bit of both. It's a bit reactive, so whether something's happening at the time, but also there is genetics in there as well, because that's what makes you as a person. And I think as you grow up, you take as gospel everything your mum and dad tell you, and then you begin to challenge it, and then you become your own person. That can be quite scary in itself. And I think if you implant the notion that showing your personality or your innermost feelings is a scary thing to do, but hopefully with Moodbeam, being able to sort of timestamp literally in a binary form of, press the button, happy, sad, it's mindfulness and practice, and then you crack on with your day, whatever that might be. Now, whether you're 7 or 37 or 87, there's still that moment in time that's made you feel a certain way. And I think rather than it being bold, what you're actually saying is, this is how I truly felt at that moment in time. And it can actually be quite a really, it's a huge pivotal moment. We've had people who've been on the prototype trials who maybe into their 30s have just broken down and said, I've never once stopped to think how I feel.
Yeah.
Never.
I know.
Nobody's ever asked me. And to actually be asked how you feel actually makes a lot of people very emotional, because it shows that somebody cares.
Yeah.
And I think having, care on your wrist, if you like, in terms of self-care, being able to press that button and know how you feel, and then non-verbally transfer that information to somebody else if you want to share it, is actually quite a big step.
Awesome. So let's just at this point then focus in on Moodbeam. So you've spoken there a little bit, and you was hinting towards the device and wearables and etc. Just explain for the listeners, whether if there are managers, team leaders, supervisors, just key people in the organisation, what have you created? What, in a nutshell, what is the device and what does it do?
Okay, brilliant. So Moodbeam basically is a tool that allows its user or its wearer to log their mood on the go.
And it's a wrist device.
It's a wrist-borne wearable. It literally has 2 buttons, yellow for happy, blue for sad. It actually has a braille dimple, if you like, for visually impaired, but also for people if they want to wear it. It's charity band style, so it's not a big clunky watch. It's very lightweight. It doesn't have to be close to the skin. We're not dealing with biometrics here. We're purely and simply a band on your arm that allows you to press a button, and that mood is captured in that moment.
So if other people didn't know what it was, it would just appear as a charity band or some type of some type of watch or whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to signal I am stressed or I am worried. You're designed it in a way which is very soft, subtle, discreet.
Yeah, it's very discreet, and really what we've done, and we've thought a long time about user experience and what it feels like. It's very soft, sort of silicone band. You can sort of stretch it over your wrist, so whether you're younger or older with dexterity issues, you pop it onto your arm, and literally it can just stay there and either have the face to the front, if you like, the 2 buttons outwardly showing, because a lot of people are happy to talk about their mental health, and it's almost like an amulet to say, look, hey, I'm taking care of how I feel. Or they can turn it around, and it's just a simple white band at the moment that can be just worn like a charity band.
And I guess, you made a really good point within that, which is, if we're going to achieve what we want to achieve in the mental health space, i.e. it's okay to talk and it shouldn't be a stigma around it, then people will want people to know what it is. I mean, I've spoken with quite a lot of people in the workplace over recent months and over the last year who are struggling, and they're quite bold and outgoing with it, and people know in the department, and it's a bit of a breath of fresh air, because they're not treading on eggshells around people. If we achieve what we want to achieve, it doesn't really matter. But what we're saying is, it is designed with being mindful around not just displaying to everybody what it is, what it's used for, etc.
That's personality driven though as well. It depends how you want to wear it.
Of course. So it's just to recap, it's a wearable device, a wrist device, 2 buttons, on it, which can record a happy feeling or a sad feeling, basically.
That information then is transferred wirelessly to an app, which comes free with the device.
So like any other wearable tech, when you think about Fitbits and stuff like that, you've got an app on your phone. Whatever you're pressing, the trends that you're recording throughout the day, whether it's happy or sad, records to an app. So later in the day, you could go on and you could see your sort of timeline of the day and your peaks and troughs. Is that right?
Absolutely, got it in one. It's basically an electronic mood diary. So really, once it comes in close, once the device, the wearable, comes in close proximity to a paired and trusted device like your phone or a tablet, the information is automatically downloaded so that you get to open up the app and you get to see a diary of moods. And what that also allows you to do within the app is you can annotate. So if you can remember,
why you pressed the button.
11 o'clock, what happened? Oh, yeah.
I was in a meeting with so-and-so, he triggered me, it made me feel bad, I pressed the button,
Yeah, so literally it is, but what it also has within the device now, it has an accelerometer. So you're able to it does track sleep and movement. So although mood is the predominant factor, because that's what people really need to be thinking about, how is my mood affected by what I drink, what I eat, who I talk to, what I was doing at a certain time. It has that added sort of information so that when you go into the app, you can literally look at that and go, well, yeah, I didn't have lunch till about 3 o'clock. Well, no wonder in terms of workplace, no wonder I was grumpy or I hadn't performed the tasks that I'd set out to do, and you just beat yourself up over all of these things you can probably really simply change if you turn around and go, well, hang on a minute, before anything I knew that meeting was coming up, I'll prepare myself mentally and physically for that, good breakfast, lots of water, and a bit of downtime before that meeting.
And you've sort of answered my next question in that one, which is great, which is the value of it is, yes, it's a simple push-a-button model. I'm happy, I'm not feeling happy. But you can then look at the trends and start to think about the things, either environmental in the workplace or relationship-based or whatever it might be, that are triggering. Is there a pattern to when I'm pressing the unhappy button? Is it the minute I walk through to work in the morning? Is it when I'm in a meeting with a certain person? Is it when my workload is really coming on at peak times of the day? Whatever it might be. And you can then start to correlate the things that are triggering that unhappy behaviour and make a change. And that's what you're sort of saying there.
It really is. When you're able to see in black and white or blue and yellow, in our case, really how your mood is affected by certain things throughout the day, that leads to sort of confident decision making. And whether you are a junior intern or somebody who's running the company, you're able to work sort of together to start a conversation, say, well, maybe we shouldn't have that day like that. Maybe on a Monday it's between 9 and 12. It's allowing you to prepare for the week rather than starting a team meeting at 10 o'clock when you're under pressure to just get into the office.
Or maybe it's we're asking you to stand up every Friday in the boardroom and present the weekly figures to the board, and you're having meltdowns running up to it and afterwards. It might not be for you. You're very good with the data and the figures, and your department, but it's physically at this moment in time sending you into a spiral 24 hours before and afterwards. So we've got to make a change there, right? So I like that. Now, one of the things I'm going to do at this point is I just want to signpost any managers or leaders who are listening to this to the hub, because you get access to the T2 Managing Stress in the Workplace Toolkit. And Christina and I have talked about this a lot, and this is sort of how our paths crossed and where we found the synergies. But what I love about the Moodbeam product and where I think it fits into this is, in our Managing Stress Toolkit, as you will see on the hub, is we have a worry diary. And we categorise worries hypothetical or practical, and we ask people to keep a 7-day diary and write down in the moment when they feel unhappy or worried, if it's hypothetical or practical, time of day, strength of worry, etc. So we're asking people to then come back after 7 days, sit with their manager and review the worry diary. And that then gives the manager an idea of the triggers that are instigating the worries in the first place. And then we can deal with them, whether they're practical or hypothetical. And there's a whole, if you look in the toolkit, there's a whole host of techniques and coaching stuff that we provide you to be able to then, no matter what that output is, we can help the individual deal with it. But the problem with that sometimes is that if you're in a meeting with 3 people and somebody triggers you, or you're having an instant thought of unhappy thought, or you feel stressed or under pressure, you can't just get your bloody worry diary out and start writing in it, right? There's no discretion with that sometimes, and if you try and do it too far afterwards, it can. What I love about the Moodbeam device is you can press that button discreetly with nobody else being aware or knowing, and so therefore you're more likely to capture things in the moment than try to reflect on them at the end of the day. And don't get me wrong, the worry diary works if you're in isolation or on your own, but a lot of the times we feel under stress and pressured, and we feel like we're worrying and we've got anxiety when we're in a public forum or domain, and the device allows you to do that. Christina, would you agree with that?
I think absolutely, and I think it beautifully sums up the synergy between what you do and how Moodbeam could be another tool in your toolkit. You know, I think really being able to, you know, use the diary, but also at the same time, you know, personally press a button yourself is very empowering. And you know that you've captured that, and you get, you know, there is a haptic feedback, so you'll have an acknowledgement that the button is being pressed. You know, for the happy button, it's on syllables, it's the journalist in me, so there are 2 syllables for happy, 2 vibration, 2 haptic buzzes.
Right.
For the sad, there's 1, so you'll know which button you've pressed.
So even if you're not looking directly, you're trying to discreetly do it under the desk.
Completely.
You'll know if you've pressed the right one.
You'll know, yeah.
And then after the meeting, you could essentially go back to your desk or workstation. You could open your app and you could just type in a few notes of why you pressed that button.
Absolutely, yeah. So it'll be, you know, John said this, and then Angela said that, and that's that moment because, you know,
it made me feel like this.
It made me feel this, or made me feel that. And I think what's really nice, the way that workplaces are embracing sort of Moodbeam, is that they actually want to show that they do care, but in a really affordable, accessible way.
Yeah.
So it's something that perhaps, you know, you would gift to a new employee, almost like a probationary, you know, care buddy.
Yeah.
So you would say, look, we know this is, you know, a new environment for you, but we do care. We want you to enjoy your work. We want to get the best out of you as a person. And that can sometimes be enough in itself. But if somebody has been struggling, or what we do know is that there's an awful lot of presenteeism going on.
Yes.
So you are sitting there, you're very, very grateful for the job you have, but your mind's just not on it for whatever reason. And being able to non-verbally, you know, share that information with a line manager or somebody that you trust within an organisation is a really good way for sort of, you know, line managers to know that somebody is struggling, because up until now it's been a case of, well, you know, they're not performing, and then you don't get any feedback because it's too personal an issue to talk about, and then you're seen as, you know, reticent or not, you know, focused on the job, when in fact there could be something. Because I think this is a really important part of Moodbeam, we hope, is that with the Moodbeam, it's the user, the wearer, who owns the information.
Yeah.
So it's entirely up to them whether they share that information. So in terms of empowerment, it's fantastic for the user, but in terms of a company, there's zero accountability, because we know and appreciate from talking to a lot of companies that historically it's terrifying to know that somebody is potentially struggling, and then God forbid something does happen and they do commit suicide or they attempt to, having the knowledge to know that they were struggling, but then potentially thinking, what, you know,
did
what
we
can
do all we can?
Did we do
So
all
just
we
to make that
can?
clear point, the accountability is not with the organisation. The organisation can choose this as an initiative to provide a device and a model of supporting employees, but it's the employees' accountability and ownership. They can share that with the organisation if they want, or they can choose to just, you know, use it, wear it, and keep it themselves. So with managers, then let's just turn it back to the managers. So if we've got managers listening to this who have got maybe a couple of people in their team who they know have got a history of chronic depression or mental health issues, or just periods where they get stressed and anxious. You know, there's the vast spectrum is from not everybody's suicidal and depressed, right? Some people just don't handle pressure very well. Some people just are anxious people, right? And you know, but for any managers listening to this who have got people in their team who are susceptible to this, and they're thinking, well, this would be a really useful tool to use. How do you do it? Do you sort of have a conversation with how do you encourage organisations to do it? Do they have a conversation with the individual first to basically say, listen, we have this at our disposal, we will happily provide the device for you. We'd like you to work with the manager on it. It is your discretion whether you want to do that or not. But the whole idea of this is we can help you if we know what's triggering and concerning you. So do you have terms and conditions around it? How simple is it for managers to deploy with their team members?
I think it's, a lot of the time it's how long's a piece of string, but I think it really depends on the sort of the company sort of ethos, if you like. If they are a company who perhaps, now this is really quite a sweeping statement, but for example, if you have a company that you've had individuals who've worked with you for 10, 20 plus years, you will have a natural relationship already established, and perhaps with those individuals it's something that you would keep maybe within your HR toolkit, so that's something that you pull out when you sort of think, hang on, there's a lot of days absence, and you perhaps gift it to them and say, look, this is part of the HR strategy. It'll allow you to sort of know that we care. Yeah. Use it at will, and we'll be able to sort of talk about it if you want to share it. But there is evidence growing that with younger generations coming through, millennials, there's an expectation to have something available in the workplace for mental health. So they will actually be a lot more open and vocal about the fact that I have suffered from anxiety for 10 years. I've gone through this program, but I really want this job. And that's an opportunity to say, well, that's great, because we actually within our wellbeing program have this device called Moodbeam. You wear it, and if you want to, you share it.
Love it.
And I think it really allows the company to allow the user to decide. And I think that's really important.
So what you're saying is it's situationally relevant. You have it as part of your wellbeing program in the organisation. You cannot enforce it upon everybody, nor should you. No, you shouldn't be aggressively deploying this with anybody you think is stressed or whatever it might be. They've got to drive that, but we've got to communicate that we have it within our program. This is what it is. This is how it's used. You can keep it and use it in isolation, or you can engage with your manager, and they will then help and support and coach you around it. But the choice is yours. We just have it as part of our program. And do you know what, Christina? We do that with our Managing Stress Toolkit. We accredit HR and leaders on it. It's a train-the-trainer thing. They then become the custodians of it, and how they want to use it is their prerogative. It's situationally relevant. There'll be some people who will love it and want to engage with it. There might be some people of an older generation who might be hesitant, sceptical, find it a bit exposing or whatever it might be. So we've just got to make sure that we are applying it situationally, is what you're sort of saying, I think.
Yeah, I think so. It's a tool, really, that allows people who do know what they're talking about, if you like, to enhance what they already do. So if within a company there's a mentor or a buddy or HR or whatever it is, the support, it will allow them to sort of see evidential mood, if you like. So that's that person's mood. It's very anonymised unless they share they opt to sort of share. At the minute, what we've worked on within the trials is that it's anonymous. Yeah. It's a numerical. It's an opportunity to know that at some point you might appear on a company dashboard. We are sort of talking to companies about Moodbeam dashboards, where you see the well-being of your workforce. Yeah. So that conversation's already started, but at the moment it's very much in an anonymous basis. So there's no big brother. There's nobody watching you.
And you know what? I think it would be wonderful to have the dashboard, and I can see how you can sort of go from an organisational level to a departmental level to a team level to an individual level. But you might be stepping in, and you've already thought of this, right? You might be stepping into the realms where people then start not being completely honest with it because they don't want to come across.
Yes.
So what the beauty about it in its origins is it's completely anonymous and personal. So hopefully they will capture exactly how they're feeling, and if then they choose to share that, it's going to be more powerful.
Yeah, I think that's.
I'm not saying the other one won't work, but that's a consideration you've got to.
Honestly, I think everybody's going to be different, and I think ultimately being sort of gifted or handed, or we are actually talking to GPs at the moment. Perhaps socially prescribed one, so that when you come to a new position or you come back to work after a period of absence and people will say, well, what's that? It's like, I'm taking control of my mental health. I'm taking control of my well-being,
Yeah.
you know, and it's actually a real talking point, because then you get over the whole sort of historically uncomfortable bit of, I wonder how they are they all right again, do you know? And it's the whole sort of, you know, being quite bold and showing, well, nobody, you know, questions you know, sort of physical health monitors, do they? Well, why would you do that?
Exactly.
You know, well, it's, you know, it's.
I love that. We will spend money and wear all of these devices and share them on Facebook and how many miles we've run and what our Fitbit tells us about our heart rate, but we seem to completely view it different when it comes to mental health. Yeah. And that's the stigma we're trying to remove, right?
I think so. When you realise, like the World Health Organization predicted a couple of years ago, and unfortunately they're still on track, that the biggest disease globally by 2020 will be mental health and mental illness. When you know that that's coming, you want to. We're certainly not professing to, you know, kill the tidal wave, but we would like to think that at some point people will be bold enough to say, well, actually, I do care about myself, and I think that's where it starts.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the conversation carries on.
Do you know what, we have a theory here, or a concept that I always talk about in conferences and stuff, and making decisions and taking action is the number one key when it comes to challenge and threat state mindsets. You know, when we are not taking action and we are procrastinating and hypothetical worrying, but we are not making decisions and taking action, it's a self-perpetuating cycle. Whereas when we go, hang on a second, let me bring it back to the present and let me take action, i.e. I'm going to do something about it, that's the origins, it's the start of recovery, it's the start of improving your mental health and thinking more challenge state than threat state. And what this device and what this process will do is it triggers some action. It starts to trigger action.
Yeah, and we sort of underestimated, because again, you know, it was something that came into my head from a personal experience. But when you speak to people like brain scientists, for example, very, very clever people who have spent years researching the mind and placebo effect and all those things, they get very, very excited about Moodbeam's potential within that arena, because, you know, and in some of our prototype trials, very, very humbling but overwhelming experiences for us, because what's happened is, even just by pressing a button, can release, I think, 4 different types of endorphins, serotonin, and all of these things that naturally encourage you to start to feel a bit better. We've had 16-year-olds who've been self-harming and haven't wanted to leave their homes, suddenly out in a coffee shop talking to somebody,
because they know if they feel the way they do, they can press the button and we'll deal with that later.
It's the physical press that we underestimated. Apparently, just pressing a button can get you up off your feet. And walking out the door, and I suppose in every sense of the word, metaphorically and physically, being able to take that step outside or back in to the office is a massive, massive thing. And just knowing that a button press, some people who haven't even seen the visualizations, haven't seen their moods visualized, are already encouraged, and then when they get to see their moods, it's like a double whammy of like, wow, I thought I was miserable, but there's loads of yellow there.
Yeah, and you know what? One of the things why it correlates with our managing stress toolkit that we've created is because we have a space in the diary for recording the happy moments, the great moments. So we're saying, we don't want you to just put down the practical and hypothetical worries that you observe, but we want you to capture what makes you feel great. So if that's reward and recognition in the workplace, if it's spending time with loved ones, if it's eating chocolate cake, whatever it might be, what triggers a happy moment in you? So what you can do with Moodbeam is the same thing. So then what we do is we start to say to people, well, all of these things trigger anxiety in you and worries, but all of these things make you feel great. So we don't have to be neuroscientists to say do less of this and more of this, right? So if a manager listening to this can then help an individual, they will say, how can I facilitate more of that and try to eradicate this? So it at least gives you that pathway forward. It gives you a way, rather than just trying to eat the elephant in one and thinking, oh my God, my employees is stressed, or I'm now having to deal with, chuck it over to HR, or they go off on sick leave. And then where are we? We're heading nowhere.
And you still don't know why. Whereas at least with Moodbeam, you start a conversation that has historically been really difficult to do because you're reaching into an abyss. Whereas if you know that 11 o'clock every day is a really unproductive or difficult time for somebody, you shift around the work diary.
Or if there's a particular individual that they're just not getting on with, or there's history, or it's getting to the, you know, a lot of my experience, Christina, is a lot of individuals who start to struggle in organisations, it's usually because of their relationship with their direct manager. We see it in very high octane pressurised roles such as sales or whatever it might be, where they're just the manager and the relationship between them and their manager is incredible. It's gone beyond, you know, collaborative or repair, and that's what we see, and you know that we need to be able to capture that. If there's an individual or another person in an organisation who is triggering it, then we need to either facilitate a role change or temporarily move them into a different team or a different area, and just to see if it settles and improves. And you know, this is the type of data you can get from it. So last question, because I know we're on half an hour already. I could talk to you all day. Last question: if I was to say, you know, what a lot of people struggle with, what a manager's responsibilities in an organisation? Because let's face it, they're ill equipped to deal with stuff. Sometimes the managers might be dealing with their own stuff, right? So my view is they can't be a psychologist, they can't be, you know, delivering cognitive behavioural therapy or understanding how to diagnose a particular, you know, a particular mental health situation, but they do have a duty of care on the front line, I think, to at least try and get close to their people, recognise when they're struggling, and at least go through that triage phase of, like we're saying, what is triggering it? Is it the company? Is it something in the role? Is it an individual? Or is it something in their personal life? You know, at least triage that to show a duty of care, and then decide on what, as a manager, can I help them with, and what do we need to either pass on or facilitate professional support with. That's my view, right? So that should give managers listening to this the confidence to say, well, I can do something. I can do more than what I'm doing now.
Sure.
And I don't have to become a psychologist. But I just want to sort of show them that we care, show the duty of care, and at least go through the triage process. That's how my view on it. Would you agree with that, or?
Yeah, well, I think it's really, really simple in terms of what Moodbeam creates. It creates conversations.
Yeah.
It brings the human back to, it's human centric, if you like. You know, because that we deal with, you know, managers all the time who suffer from imposter syndrome.
Yes.
So they've reached the heady ranks, the ivory towers, whatever you want to call it, but they feel so isolated because half of them are thinking, how the hell did I get here? The other
Am I good enough? Am I going to get found out? Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're still human beings.
Yeah, of course.
So no matter what role you're in, it's the human side of things that we really need to keep a hold of. We're in a world now where there's, you know, AI and AR and VR and algorithms and all of these amazing, wonderful technological advances. But first and foremost, we're human beings. And I think what Moodbeam allows for is somebody to be a human being. So it, you know, for the managers listening, it must be so tricky. And I know as a manager myself, from past experiences, to start a conversation. And what we've allowed now with Moodbeam is that there's evidence to have that conversation. So instead of going, oh, you know, I think have you been struggling? You can turn around and say, you know, you've thankfully had the confidence to perhaps send me on an email the information to your Moodbeam diary entries, you know, your diary of moods. And I can see that on a Monday and a Friday you really struggle. And is that because of family circumstances? Are you having to do, you know, a handover, whatever it is? Do you want to talk to me about that?
Yeah.
And that do you want to talk to me bit has never been achievable before because you've got nothing to go on.
Yeah.
Whereas what you're going with Moodbeam is that you're able to sort of evidence mood and either, you know, look at it yourself or share it with somebody else and talk about it.
It creates conversation.
It really does.
It just starts the discussion, which is that whole piece of trying to triage what's triggering it, what might be happening, and if I can help.
Yes.
And you know what? If you've done everything within your power to help, then great. If it's outside of your power, then it's time as a manager to have a conversation with HR on what more could we be doing.
Yes.
Can we offer external support? Can we do anything that will help alleviate this situation, this personal situation, or whatever it might be, for the employee? And you mentioned a good point there. It's not reserved for managers listening to this. It's not just reserved for team members, right? There are levels of managers who struggle. And imposter syndrome is only one of them. That some people just struggle from anxiety themselves. What more powerful message can you send than wearing one yourself as a manager? Say, listen, it helps me.
Yes.
I'm okay with it. It helps me, and I found this, this, and this. Why don't you give it a go?
We've had that two examples of two different companies where the boss, if you like, was wearing one in the team meeting, and they were applauded and championed by their workforce because they thought, oh my God, if he's wearing one, it's all right for us. And and it was almost like they allowed, because it's very difficult, you know this more than I do, but it's very difficult not to be too matey, but show that you care when you're in a position of authority. What he actually did was he turned around and said, look, I could do with some support, looking after you all.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is, that's where the family...
It humanises the leader or the manager, and it says, listen, we're all busy, we all, on some spectrum, we all, this is the thing I always say to people when I talk about mental health, we all have it. We all have mental health. It's not, when you think of the word mental, the stigma with it is, I had a great guy in here talking to me, Leon McQuaid, who's Andy's Man Club, and he said, I hate the word mental because when you visualise the word mental, you instantly think of straitjackets, hospitals, people who shouldn't be fit to be on the street. But we all have mental health, which means we all have a mindset and a mentality and a brain, and there's a level of health to the way we think and our current mood and mindset. Yes, some people's is very positive, some people's are in the middle, up and down, etc. But we all have mental health, and we all have times when we're stressed or overcapacitated or busy or distracted. So there's nothing better than a manager who can say, look, this is helping me. This is helping me know when my mood is fluctuating in the day, which has a direct impact on you, the team, right? So, yeah, great. Think about initiatives where you could include yourself in it, even if you don't believe you're struggling from mental health, but as a way of coping with the highs and lows of the day.
It's preventative.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, mental health, we talk about positive mental health, we talk about Moodbeam health. So you take the whole word out of the equation and just know that you're looking at your mood and your mind.
Exactly. So that's, I mean, I could talk to you all day, but just to sort of summarise and encapsulate for this Hubcast, for any managers or leaders or users who are listening to this Hubcast, mental health, the whole arena of it, whether you agree with the term or not, it's here to stay. More and more people are becoming comfortable and confident in speaking about it. I think it's on the agendas at a high level in organisations more than ever. That's only going to stay and grow. We don't believe, I think me and Christina sort of agree on this, we don't believe that you should become a guru in it because you've got enough to do in the workplace. What you should do is consider are you showing a duty of care? And by showing a duty of care, we're just saying driving discussions, allowing people to open up, and sometimes trying to get to the triggers and instigators of what's driving their worries and stress. Sometimes they are workplace driven, sometimes they're in their personal life, sometimes they're a mixture of both, but we want to try and triage that. On the Hub, we have the Managing Stress Toolkit. Have a look at it. Feel free to use it. Deploy the 7-day diary with your team. But what we strongly believe here at T2 will go hand in hand in that is the Moodbeam device, the wearable device on the wrist that allows people to discreetly capture their mood in the moment, happy or sad, and then contextualize it later within the app. It's their prerogative whether they share the information so that you can provide it as an employer as part of your wellbeing program. But we want to be asking the question situationally and saying, listen, well, I can help you if I've got access to the information or if you're willing to share some of the information with me and we can tackle this together. Either way, it's a way of organisations for me getting practical with frontline support for mental health in the workplace. And would you agree with that? Have I summarised that?
Yeah, you really have. Yeah, you have. I think it's the whole sort of mentality behind it really is that you're empowering your workforce, and by doing that you're also empowering yourself and you're having a lot more open, confident decision making going on, and surely that's productive. It's got
to be. So if you want to inquire more about Moodbeam, you can inquire with us through the Hub at help@trans2performance.com. But Christina, you just want to give your website and your details so if they want to go direct?
That'd be lovely, yeah. So the website is www.moodbeam.co.uk, and on social media we're at Moodbeam Life.
Awesome. So Christina Colmer McHugh. Got it right.
You got it right.
Co-founder of Moodbeam. Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
It's invaluable. And speak to you soon.
Thank you. you.